Oh, man, you guys, over 500,000 Miami-Dade voters opposed adult use marijuana. And everyone's asking what happened. Well, Miami-Dade may have a reputation as a party destination, but across the country on Tuesday, a majority of voters rejected allowing adult use marijuana to become part of the attraction. While almost 56% of Florida voters supported Amendment 3, only 49% of Miami-Dade voters were in favor of the proposal to legalize the sale of marijuana over the counter, making the state's most populous region one of the most conservative on cannabis, you guys. Miami-Dade was just one of 3 counties where the number of votes cast on Amendment 3 topped 100,000 and support fell below 50%. Only Collier County and Sumter counties joined Miami-Dade on that list. The amendment, which failed, needed 60% of the vote in order to pass in the first place due to the fact that it was going to be a constitutional amendment. And officials and pollsters have differing opinions on why Miami-Dade County rejected Amendment 3. Republicans and Hispanic voters were against it. A state-sponsored campaign against it was effective, and voters didn't want to smell weed, or a medical marijuana market made it unnecessary. Interesting factors they're trying to say. A Miami Herald analysis of results from each of Miami-Dade's 757 voter precincts shows that Hispanic majority neighborhoods overwhelmingly voted against legalizing adult use marijuana, and most voters in each of the county's majority black neighborhoods meanwhile supported Amendment 3. As was the case in 38 of the county's 45 majority white neighborhoods. In a quote, they say, "What I think you saw is the same way that President Trump won independence, which are primarily Hispanics down here in Miami-Dade. Those folks were not necessarily in favor of marijuana," said County Commissioner Kevin Marino Cabrera. In a quote says, I just think it doesn't jive with our values and with our beliefs, they say, end quote. Not even Donald Trump's support for Amendment 3 swayed voters in cities like Hialeah, where 75% of voters cast a ballot for the former president and only 35% voted for adult use marijuana. And similarly, in Hialeah Gardens, only 34% of voters supported Amendment 3, and in nearby Miami Lakes, the number was only slightly higher at 40%. Hialeah Mayor Esteban, a.k.a. Steve Bravo Jr., thinks the city's opposition to adult use marijuana is simple. They and most other Floridians were worried about how it would affect their lives. In a quote, they say, "Whether you're Hispanic, whether you're black, whether you're white, there's one common thing amongst all of us. You want quality of life. You want your kids out of harm's way," he said, "and I don't know how legalizing marijuana somehow or another provides a better situation for families." End quote on that. I think they need to reevaluate that a little bit, but nonetheless, that's just my opinion. And if it had passed, Amendment 3 would have legalized adult use marijuana for individuals 21 and over, and the campaign for Amendment 3, led by Smart and Safe Florida, was backed by over $140 million in donations from Trulieve, the largest medical marijuana company in the state, you guys. And on the other hand, meanwhile, Meatball Ron and the DeSantis administration used millions of taxpayer dollars to run advertising campaigns against the amendment and aligned with the hemp industry to defeat the measure. In ads, websites, and press conferences, the administration argued that it would alter the quality of life, solely benefit corporations, and make Florida more liberal. Interesting. Part of that debate between the two sides, fixated on the text of the amendment, were things such as how much control it gave corporations, how it would be regulated, and what would be its impact. In West Miami, where only 45% of voters supported Amendment 3, Mayor Eric Diaz Pardon said he thinks flaws in the text made for a compelling reason to vote against it. I think I would totally agree with that assessment, but and he believes the opposition would have been higher if DeSantis' administration had spent more and more people had known what was in the actual text of the actual bill. And in a quote, they're saying, I think some people took their cue from the governor and lieutenant governor on this, which was the liability protection, just how far the amendment went. And that, I think, people were worried about, he said, referring to a line in the amendment that says the use of marijuana won't be subject to criminal or civil liability or sanctions. I would worry more about the fact that they couldn't sue any of the companies that put out these products, but nonetheless, sentiments toward marijuana in Miami-Dade County have softened in recent years, with county commissioners giving police the ability to write citations instead of making arrests for small-time possession. And nearly 5 years ago, State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle said her prosecutors would stop pursuing low-level possession cases altogether after the state legalized the use of hemp, which looks and smells like marijuana, you guys. Even so, though, Amendment 3 performed worse at the ballot box than the movement to expand access to abortion, though it also failed. And that proposal, Amendment 4, was more popular, gaining 58% of the votes in the county. And in neighboring Broward County, where Vice President Kamala Harris was favored, and Palm Beach County, where the two presidential candidates just about tied, adult use marijuana support was at about 60%. But there was a similar gap between support for the two amendments, you guys. It's fascinating. Nikki Fried, chairwoman of and for the Democratic Party in Florida and a former marijuana lobbyist, said the messaging against Amendment 3 was bolstered by an overall lack of motivation. In a quote, she says, "People are just not motivated to turn out for that issue," she said. Interesting position you want to take there, Nikki Fried. And Miami-based consultant Ben Pallara, who ran the 2016 medical marijuana campaign in Florida, said he came up against, in quotes, an instinctual cultural conservatism in Miami in 2016, but that he thinks that state campaigns against Amendment 3 had a very large impact. He said the first medical marijuana campaign he ran back in 2014 was a losing effort and came up against a similar argument from officials about the text that medical marijuana is great, but not this bill. And a version of that messaging, he said, that this is for the corporations, affected the success of the overall amendment. In an additional quote, they say, marijuana is an issue that the county and the state has evolved on substantially over the last 10 years, he said. But the support that has grown for legalization is still, I think, relatively soft and subject to nuance. Miami Herald staff writer Douglas Hanks and that's pretty much it. Douglas Hanks and McClathy are the investigative reporters that worked on this, and thank you all for your work on that. That was super, super interesting. I agree with some of the assessments. Some of them I don't necessarily agree with, but I do believe that Amendment 3 was totally flawed within its writing, and that was probably its biggest downfall overall, because there were so many people from both sides of the fence, people that wanted to support it and people that would never support it in the first place, could poke holes through it. But nonetheless, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
The people of Florida have spoken. I think this protectionist bill did not go through. I think there were too many things added in there. I think that there was, we need to do a better job. And I hope that someone steps up and writes something that is meaningful legislation for Florida that they can get behind, that doesn't protect True Leave. It's not the True Leave cannabis bill.
Yep.
And I hope that they consider, patients' rights, because we look at other places, especially conservative places and conservative groups, and the changing factor on people's hearts and minds on cannabis has always been sick kids and cancer patients, right?
Yep.
So we need to have a bigger focus on getting patients what they need, and home grow access, I think, would be very helpful for them pushing this across the line.
I totally agree.
I really don't think home grow had that much sway on this. I think it's.
Are you serious?
I really think. Yeah, I feel like people were following.
Do you know how many people have yards in Florida?
I think. Let me finish, Jason. Can I do that?
I'm just asking a question. I'm just engaging with you, Rico. Just engaging.
Let me finish, and then we can engage. How about that?
Well, okay. Pause.
All right,
Rico. It's no time for straight white Americans, bro. Yeah. Go ahead, Jason. Yeah. I'm sorry he interrupted you.
What I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, I think it was more of, just straight up Republican, and their talking points. They're following Ron DeSantis. Yeah, they're following Ron DeSantis. They're following the Republican Party, and the Hispanic vote.
I don't buy that.
Let me finish. The Hispanic vote is Republican, especially with the data coming out. The male Hispanic vote is Republican. That is their bellwether. That is their North Star now. And if you can't get the male Hispanic vote on board, chances are you're going to be going forward with whatever this Republican state and their governor is putting out there. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump.
Is it possible that fentanyl scare tactics weren't a good idea when you're trying to pass an adult use policy?
That could be another reason right there.
I think what we need to look at is the Hispanic population in Florida is largely Cubans. Cubans in Florida are mostly hardcore right-wing Cubans that were actually working with the CIA, the U.S. government, the Batista government, and the mafia, running the plantations and running the casinos. Those were the folks who fled when Castro took over because they were about to get it, or what they had been doing to the Cuban people, which was accumulating all their resources in their pockets. So when the right-wing Cubans came, we have a nexus of first off right-wing politics and economic policy, but also Roman Catholic brainwashing. We continue to see Latino voters, for the most part, voting against their interests because of brainwashing by the Roman Catholic Church that really started in the 1400s. A lot of this stuff is very easy to see if you just look at kind of look at it through a historical lens.
I think we're forgetting about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, proverbial 800-pound gorilla. We've talked about this here at High at 9, and that is that the hemp industry is alive and well in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Oh. Right? And the hemp industry has a bigger war chest than Kim Rivers and Trulieve. Let's face it, right? They're making more money. They have a much larger addressable market. They're not bogged down with over-onerous regulation. They have a quick route to market. There are tons of producers who are now producing the cannabinoid inputs, so you're 2 steps away from a field of hemp or a producer at a lab. So, I think that there are other things that basically kept this law from passing, and certainly eating into hemp, intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids market share was probably on the minds of those who have basically funded the hemp production that's huge in the state of Florida. Huge. With deep pockets behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they lost because they didn't show Kim Rivers' kitchen table enough.
Oh, I see what you did there, Matthew St. Germain. That was cute. That's very cute. Very cute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ron DeSantis saying that he was going to put a huge blanket over the hemp industry and riding with them and pitting them against quote unquote marijuana. I think it really worked. Mm-hmm. Divide and conquer, and it worked.
Don't you think, Rico, that there was some influence based on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think. I know there were all those leaked text messages and all that, and getting the money over to these guys. Like, that never came up. And I think with Donald Trump becoming president again, we're just seeing, like, people at the highest levels of government, there's not going to be any accountability for shit like that.
Speaking of Donald Trump, I mean, he did take Miami-Dade County, and that was the first time that in a long time that county has voted red.
Yeah, but like I said, the government is for sale. Period.
Because we're red D for change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's going to be no more accountability for shit that you get exposed for along the way. Ron DeSantis and this whole movement and all the money that went over to the hemp side of everything, and all these leaked texts showed that there was collusion with them, and they was pushing over all of these campaign funds when he shouldn't have been. Right? You think he's going to get exposed for that? You think he's going to get indicted, or he's going to get be held to account for that? Hell no.
Interesting. That was very cute, Jenny. I heard what you did there. That was cute.
And I saw your face when you realized it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on this, Dr. T?
Oh, you're on mute, love.
You're still on mute.
Thanks, Jenny.
Oh, there we go.
I think this whole movement toward adult use, when are we going to realize that it's not working? The public doesn't want to hear that we want our weed and we want to get high. So they want to hear that it's helping people. This is what we started with in California a long time ago, and somewhere along the line, people got cocky and said the message needs to be, we just want to smoke our weed, and it's not working. So let's get back to how we started this. And anyway, cannabis is a health and wellness product.
It is medicine.
Facts. And
you know what? I had a golf lesson yesterday, and I was sitting at the clubhouse working afterwards, and the bartender was talking to me, a really nice lady. And I'm like, can I smoke outside? And she goes, they even smoke pot out there. I'm like, I hope they keep doing it. That's my job. And she goes, that helps me. That's what gets me through life. She's like, my plant-based medicine. She's like, I call it plant medicine. I'm like, that is amazing. I was really stoked to hear that. So people are catching up.